Hello to all my booty seekers and cheek chasers. This is the Carpe Natem Podcast. I'm your host, Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso, and I am so grateful you are listening to this episode. If you're new here, you should know that I believe that my purpose is to uplift, inspire, and educate others to communicate masterfully so that they can better understand themselves and the world around them. I've spent years in the personal development and transformational technology space, and I want to share with you the wisdom that was passed down to me from giants in the industry. So if you're on a journey of self-mastery, just like me, looking to make dreams a reality and willing to be a leader for your family and community, then join me in seizing the butt cheeks of life and giving them a big ol' squeeze. Let's jump into the show. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. I have Austin's number one comedian henchman here with me, Mr. Alden Schaub. He is the host of the Lucky Duck Open Mic. He is also the host of Indian Roller and the Open Mic at the Sandjack Salon. He's also doing a tag writing mic. He is just doing so many things, including hosting trivia games at the Barton Springs Salon, as well as the Lucky Duck room. You are one of the busiest people I've seen in the comedy scene, and I'm so excited to have you on today. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Nate. Yeah. I actually forgot to mention I'm bartending over at the Tiger Den on Fridays and Saturdays. That's like the East Austin Comedy Club now.
You keep yourself so busy, and it seems like creatively it's benefited you because you're always coming up with new material. I've never seen you do a set where I've seen you repeat jokes, but I've seen you always coming up on stage with new material. What made you kind of start doing all these different mics? Was it to improve your own self, or was it to give back to the community?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously we all want stage time and stuff, but I do feel like it's important to kind of support the infrastructure of the comedy. I mean, there's so many comedians here. There's so much need for stage time. We could have mics, 5, 10, 20 mics a day, and it would probably be fine, And I just like, and also I like hosting. I mean, it's something I enjoy. A lot of people view it as sort of a thing to get over with or get through that to get to the next thing. But I don't know. I just like doing it. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I don't know. All of it's supposed to be fun, right? I mean,
it is supposed to be fun. Some people are supposed to some people do take this a lot more seriously, and you have to be serious and to be like super focused on what you do. But when you do it, it seems like you're having a really good time. It seems like you're really enjoying what you do. You're almost like a comedy Santa.
That's true, I suppose.
You're very jolly. You're very silly. You're very creative. And I really admire that about you.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we should be having fun, right? But it's easy to say it, and then it's one thing to do it. I mean, people have different goals, like you say. People want to be a famous person, or they want to be really funny, or they want to be in movies or whatever it is. But if you're suffering through the whole thing to get to that, I mean, that probably won't work out. I mean,
right. What's the point of doing it if you're not enjoying the things that you're doing?
Well, just coming up with new ideas all the time. So I have to write trivia for my trivia games, and so I write my own. So every week I'm writing, 50 trivia questions. So that's sort of informed the way I write comedy. I'm trying to write new stuff all the time. And then the stuff that's, I think, good, I'll continue to work on it. And a lot of it I'll just throw out. I think that's pretty much everybody's process,
And you stay writing, because I actually do notice when you post on your stories, you have this exercise where you get a word and you're basically writing out jokes using that word. So it could be something like suffocating, and you'll write a joke about how a fart made you suffocate, or how a room could feel suffocating. It's very interesting how you do that. What is that part of a program, or is that part of a group of things or a group of people doing the same exercise? Did you come up with this on your own?
Oh no, another comic. Will Fordyce. He gave me the idea. He showed me this thing. It's called the Hot Breath Writers Room, and so they post it once a day. You just whatever the word is. So you're supposed to try to write 10 jokes in 10 minutes. And people have asked me, well, why? I don't use those jokes. That's not really the purpose of it, Like if you would talk to somebody who's a boxer, would you say, well, yeah, I throw one punch a day, and then that's pretty good. No, I mean, you gotta just punch all the time, and then, you become a good puncher,
Right. It's a muscle that you are exercising so that way it gets better. Similar to, I've noticed that my rant muscle gets better because I'm doing podcasts and I force myself to do these interviews. I force myself to do this, but I do enjoy doing this. There are some times where I feel like maybe I'm being incoherent or maybe I'm doing it, but then that's just me judging myself. The idea, like you said, is to get the reps in so that way the muscle gets stronger, the writing gets better, the whole thing just kind of overall improves, and you're working to just improve your craft, and you're a genuine man of your craft. What made you get into comedy?
Oh, well, like I say, I was hosting trivia for a few years when I lived in Michigan, and then I moved down here, and I got a job at a pawn shop. I thought maybe I'd want to run a pawn shop, but it turns out I don't. But it was an interesting experience, and then I was like, well, what is it that I do want to do? And I was like, oh, I sure liked trivia. That was pretty fun. Maybe I'll do that again. So I started running my own business, and then so to make a larger trivia business, generally you hire other hosts, you get other bars, and then you sort of take a step back from hosting and you just become like a salesperson and like an administrator, basically. So as I was looking at that track, I was like, that sounds horrible. Like nothing, people do that and they have a successful business, but I was like, I don't really care for that so much. I enjoy the hosting. So I was like, well, then I'm not going to make a larger trivia business. So I actually got rid of all my other hosts and I just do it for fun. And then I was like, well, where are there other opportunities to perform? I thought, well, obviously comedy, So I looked into doing improv and I looked into doing stand-up, and I just seemed to like stand-up better, so I just started doing that.
Do you remember the first jokes that you wrote?
Oh, not really. I don't know. That was actually the first mic I did here in Austin was at the Cherrywood Coffee House, and that was probably in 2018 or something.
So the first mic you did was in 2018, and then from then it's just kind of grown on you. You're obviously very comfortable on stage. Was there anything in particular that, I'm assuming it was the trivia hosting that got you really comfortable on stage, but did you notice that there was a really big difference between kind of being a host on trivia and then doing open mics and doing comedy?
Oh, yeah, it's very different. But a host of a comedy show and a host of a trivia show are very similar. But a comedian and a trivia host are not. There are some overlapping things, but like a trivia host doesn't have to be funny. There's an idea of, Scott Adams is a guy, he wrote Dilbert. Mm-hmm. He would talk about you got your skill stack, So he'd say, I'm not the best cartoonist and I'm not the funniest person, but I'm like the funniest cartoonist, Mm. So I've noticed that, since I've started doing stand-up, I'm the funniest trivia host. It's not required, but it's definitely improved my product in a sense. So there's certain things I'm comfortable with speaking, and I have good stage presence and all that. But I didn't have any material. I didn't have any idea of the timing, none of that, or how to put a set together, any of that. So I'm trying to learn that stuff now. So some of the stuff as far as the persona and that, I'm more comfortable doing. But so I'm trying to write all the time because I'm trying to develop material. Where if somebody just started out doing comedy, they had been developing material the whole time.
Sure. Yeah, it took me a while to really, and I'm still struggling to find my jokes, because the things that I find funny, I have to also, I feel like I almost have to convince other people to find funny, because my jokes are crude, but and inappropriate, but that's the kind of comedy that I enjoy the most. And it really, I noticed that in the year and a half that I've been in comedy, the other comics that I get to see, they've developed their style over time, and I guess some people may have that notion that they kind of out the gate kind of already have to know what they're going to sound like, what they're going to do, but that's not really the truth. It's really more about the time that's been put in eventually leads to the voice that ends up becoming, who that artist is.
Oh, sure. Well, but what you find personally funny will give you a boost. I think illiteracy is super funny. So I don't know what it is about it, but in my personal view of what's funny, that's it. So if I can write jokes about that, I personally am going to be delighted by it, and that is sort of beyond the material. If the performer really thinks it's funny, it gives it a boost, I guess. It's something beyond the language or something.
Right, because again, it goes back to enjoying what you do, and if I'm up there making myself laugh, then at the end of the day, I did make one person laugh. I made myself laugh, even if the room is just dead. And as somebody who's hosted many, many events, do you have any struggle with bringing that level of energy to rooms that may not be as filled as they could be? Because I've performed in front of rooms with like 2-3 people, and you still have to give it in the same sense as like you're all, regardless of if it's a crowd of 100 or if it's a crowd of 2.
Well, I've seen comics, like I have that show at Indian Roller, and sometimes there's, 15, 20 people there. That's pretty great. But sometimes there's 4. And I see some of the comics they're disappointed by that, and they don't like it, and so then they do not put out their effort. They're just like, oh, I'm just here to go through the motions or whatever. And then some are like, well, whoever's here, I'm going to entertain them. That's our job, essentially. And that's definitely a difference. I feel that way. I just I'm an entertainer. That's my. I don't really have anything I'm trying to say. I just want to entertain the people. So whoever's there, I'm going to give it to them or whatever I got. And but also too, there's this thing I was reading about. It's called mirror neurons. So your brain is reflecting the other person's brain. Essentially, you're keeping the story of reality together collectively in a sense. So if you're up there just oh man, this isn't really going good. Well, in a way, you are reflecting that no matter what you're actually saying. So it's bad. But if you can get up there and I don't know where the enthusiasm comes from, but if you can get that going, then you definitely have an advantage. I mean, it's not going to make the show fantastic, but those people there, I've had people come up after just 2 people being there and be like, wow, that was some good stuff. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And then they'll be back. I mean.
Yeah, and that's how you create a fan base. That's how you create it, because at the end of the day, if whether you're screaming into the void or you actually are able to build an audience, the idea is that you kind of bring it and you kind of give it your all. Something that I didn't know that you and I share is we have a love of personal development books, and a lot of the people who write these books, they talk about giving it their all and actually putting their best foot forward regardless of who the audience is, because you want to be the most authentic self. And like you said, if you go into it with an attitude that's negative or you're feeling disappointed yourself, that energy can be felt in the room. It can be felt through audio. So if you're not giving it all, then what's the point of even giving it to begin with? Well,
and why you're there is important. Are you there for yourself? Are you there for the external, acknowledgement or whatever? But yeah, it's funny, a lot of those books on motivation I've read, and I sold cell phones maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't know anything about sales, but I just and so I started listening to Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Les Brown and different people, and I'm not in sales anymore, but that idea that you have to kind of you got to put the effort in and then the reward will come, that's important. I mean, and even that also from Tony Robbins, the idea that you could make a change. So before I got into comedy, I was like, well, what is getting into comedy? What does that even mean? So I, obviously I've watched Mad TV or Saturday Night Live or comedy movies. But what does it mean to be a comedian? So I read a bunch of biographies about different comics, and there's a story that emerges basically that all of them are a 10-year overnight success. And in that interim, they're just struggling the whole time and obscurity, and everyone's telling them that they're stupid. And that, so that's before I got started and as a stand-up, I thought to myself, okay, how does that sound? You're going to sign up to do this, and you're going to commit 10 years of your life, theoretically. That's an average, and there may be no reward at the end, and you might be in abject poverty the whole time. And how does that sound? I was like, oh, that sounds good. So then now I don't have worries about it. I've sort of committed, like Zig Ziglar would say, make the commitment plays heavily in the thing. So I don't have the doubts or whatever. I just decided I'm going to do it.
Right. And I think that there is a difficulty that a lot of people face currently with instant gratification, where it has to be now. They have to go viral now. They have to write the joke that gets shared 1 million times on Facebook or Instagram. At the same time, it's very rare that actually happens. Even somebody like Hans Kim, who's doing phenomenal right now, he spent years doing, putting into the craft, living in a van, putting himself in as many situations that he could to project himself. And when he finally got an opportunity to shine, he fucking shined. But everyone looks at that as oh, it was an overnight success, or you got it because you got this opportunity from this person. But it's something that I read recently that Tony Robbins wrote was something along the lines of when you're prepared and you and you have practice, that's when you get the byproduct of luck. It's not just luck. It's the being prepared and putting in the time. So when that opportunity comes, you can grab it. It's not really so much luck, but it's being prepared for when that moment strikes.
Oh, yeah, and especially in Hans's case, if that particular opportunity wouldn't have come along, another opportunity would have come along. He was ready to take an opportunity, whatever it was,
Right.
So that's again, he was prepared. Or other people, if they had been given that opportunity, it wouldn't have worked out for them. I mean, so it's different.
And a big thing that you mentioned was commitment. Like, are you willing to struggle? Are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to do something for less money than it took to even get to the venue? And something that's very shared with musicians as well is of course, you want to play out the sold out stadium, but sold out stadiums come after 10, 15 years of putting in the grind. It's of touring. It's all the work where there's sleepless nights, there's money put into it, there's times where you're taking odd jobs so you can fulfill your dream. But it goes back to, why are you doing this in the first place? What made you commit to pursuing something like comedy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to work. I mean, I do work, but I like the idea of not having a traditional job, Even if I wasn't doing comedy, I'd be doing trivia, or I'd be doing something like that. Part of that's just having autonomy. But too, when I started out, I set a goal for myself of, I want to be able to do this for a living. Mm-hmm. That was sort of my objective, and I'm sort of at that point now. I mean, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm making enough where I don't have to have a traditional job. So to me, I already checked off the success box. I mean,
right.
The rest that's happening is just extra or bonuses. I mean, and it's fun to work with creative people because, there are people who are funny, and then there are people who are creative, and they're not necessarily the same thing. Mm-hmm. But I have this I call it a creativity organ, or it puts out this bile, and I have to expel it essentially. And it wouldn't have to be comedy. I get some of that out of cooking, or just but I got that creative drive, whatever that is. And so the times where I haven't exercised it, I've just been miserable. And the times where I do, I feel happy. So I just have to live with it,
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard because you tell people that, and they're like, well, what's the point? Or what are you trying to do? Or what? I'm like, well, I don't know, but I have to. It's I have to exercise my muscles, and I have to exercise this creativity juice or whatever it is, because otherwise it'll poison you, and you're just it's really strange because I didn't think of myself as a creative type until more recently, but now as I look back on it, I realize that was sort of a pattern,
Right, something that's always been in you, and I've noticed this with really great performers and really great entertainers, is that it was always something from the get where they didn't exactly know what path they would take, but there was something in them that was calling them to do the thing that they do, and they developed something around it. Because I've always wanted to be on stage, and I thought my pathway to being on stage was through music, and I did years in music. I was able to, go on tour. I was able to do a lot of cool things in music, but then it came apart, and I'm no longer doing that venue. But there's something about being on stage that I was like, this is where I belong. This is where I want to be. So I've found other avenues to be on a stage, and that's through comedy, that's through personal development. That event, my overall goal is to eventually have some sort of company where we're doing a seminar series where we're going across the country, maybe even internationally, where I'm helping people develop their mindsets, maybe help them get into a better place financially, just something that helps other people. But at the same time, until I have that, there's still that need for external validation, or whatever you want to call it. So comedy for me has been so much fun because it's fulfilling that purpose. It's fulfilling that need of, let me be on a stage. And for whatever, whether it's right or wrong, the idea is still that I want this thing. How can I get it? And that's pushed me to go down these creative paths. I don't and I've done these jobs where it's very mundane, it's very boring, it's very it pays the bills, but I felt like it was soulless. While there are times where I go on stage, and even if I bomb, I walk away feeling so much more invigorated than I did working 40 hours, putting in data or doing schedules for a security company. For you, if you were to maybe look at where you want to see yourself in a couple of years, what kind of goals do you have set for? Because right now it sounds like you're basically living the dream. You're doing something that you're doing something that you love, and it's able to afford you a life where you don't have to maintain the typical 9 to 5. Do you have any goals set that you are aiming for and for the future?
Oh yeah, I'd like to get funnier, but no, honestly, my life's pretty great. I mean, I've been dating my girlfriend Tina for a couple of years. We moved in, and my day is like get up, write jokes, some kind of exercise. I like to either go to the gym or go to the pool. I take a nap every day, and then I got like 2 cups of coffee throughout the day. Like, that's my little fun. And then I go out and I get to perform different types of shows. That's great. What else is there? So now my thing is, okay, I'm sort of realizing the places in comedy I'm strong and the places I'm weak. So like, I feel like I'm strong in the writing, but I'm weaker in the performing. So I'm having to learn. So I can only make, like, when I try to write a joke and perform it, I'm performing it to the best of my ability, like right now. But over time, as my understanding of comedy grows, I can write better stuff. Everybody's concerned. They want to be on shows and they want to get booked and this and that. But like, I want to improve the skill. The booking will take care of itself, But also producing all this stuff myself, I'm sort of a little bit in control of my own growth, I don't have to worry about the stage time too much, because I could probably cut back some of the things I'm up to, but like, I don't, because it's fun. I mean, if it was all just like, drudgery, then you wouldn't want to do it. I mean, but it's like I got up today, I was like, I'm going to write some jokes. What's the thing? So I wrote I did the right 10, and then I wrote some topical jokes for the guys who are doing the Good Evening Tonight show. So like, then that was fun. So then once I completed that, I was like, oh, okay, I like did my work today. And that's nice. So then I have the rest of the day for leisure or whatever.
I love that mindset because the overall goal is to improve oneself, and you're not worried about getting booked or being on, Kill Tony or being, opening for Rogan. From what I'm hearing is you're saying that as you improve, the booking just comes. It's a byproduct of the effort that you put into yourself.
Sure. Well, of course, I get, FOMO like anybody else, but like I try to keep in mind that like if you want to get booked more, you got to get funnier, and that's hard pill, but you got to just say, well, okay. So then people will recognize. I mean, it's not all a game of skill. There's some politics and there's some luck and all that, but like you can take care of the skill part by just focusing on it, and then the rest is sort of up to chance or whatever. And just being a good, like you say. One of the things that's really great about the Lucky Duck is that most people are aware of, they at least know what my face looks like.
Yeah. So
that's a huge boost, because if you're emailing somebody and you're trying to get on their show or something, and they're like, who's this guy? Like, I mean, that's no good. So at least that helps a little bit. And, I noticed too, like, I don't know if you're aware of the Hot Breath or anything, but like they had an interview and it was with Jeff Foxworthy. And he said he views skill in comedy as like a gift, And he says, we should be good stewards of comedy, try to, maintain it and pass it on. So I think that's important. Like, so what I want people to feel very welcome at my shows and stuff. And like, I'm not trying to do anything but try to get better, I guess, because there's a lot, there's so many areas to improve. Like I saw this guy, and he was really doing a lot with his face. I just thought, I'm not doing enough with my face. And then some other guy was doing some voices. I was like, well, I'm trying to, okay, I could definitely improve in that area. Oh, this guy's doing impressions or whatever. Well, okay, I'm again, I feel confident with the writing, but there's so many other little facets that are, if you can get those figured out, then you're really multiplying your skill. I mean,
you're always looking for ways to improve your own skill. How can you better yourself? And
sure,
it sounds like that's what you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
I've also noticed with people who take the game seriously, who really put in the time and effort, they don't wait for stage time. They create their own stage time. And you, like many others, are hosting shows and putting on events and doing what I guess the way I put it is you're not waiting for permission to be on stage. You're creating it for you.
No, that's something that Jason Rouse told me one time. I was talking to him, and he goes, I go, well, you seem very happy with comedy. You've been doing it a very long time. I'm noticing that when comics get to a certain number of years, they seem very bitter. and you don't. So what's the difference there? And he's just like, well, I don't wait for people to give me what I need, you know. And so like that is important. We all want stage time. We all want acknowledgement. We all want to be on all the shows and stuff. But you know, if you can control your stage time a little bit by running your own show, then that's, you know, you've got a little bit of an advantage, you know. I noticed my newest skill lately is because I'm watching sometimes 80 comics at the Lucky Duck. You know, I'm getting to the punchline before them now in my head a lot of the times, and so that is a new thing. So I wasn't really doing that before because I try to write tags for everybody, but I've realized now, okay, so there's a type of a joke that they're doing something where they're indicating to me that, and I'm figuring it out before they say it. So what is it about the joke that's allowing me to do that? Are they giving away too much information, or like is it there's something about it that's obvious? So like it's weird that wasn't happening before. So I guess in a sense I'm trying to look at that and go, how can I make my own jokes more
mysterious, more
or something where it's not going to be obvious that where I'm going with it, because I want the surprise to be a surprise, you know. So I don't know. I think, but part of that's just stylistic, I guess. But
so because you on a regular basis see, if not at this point, maybe hundreds if not thousands of comics come and go over the years that you've been doing your show hosting. Do you notice any specific traits that make somebody stand out or have something where you look at them and you're like, this person's got it, this person doesn't, or doesn't have it yet? Because there's obviously a skill to develop.
Sure. I don't know. Like, well, when I'm trying to book for the Indian Roller, my main goal is, do I think they can do 10 minutes? And then I'll look and I'll watch them. If they have a good set, I'll just book them on it. You know, because it's a workout room. It's not really a big deal. But, like, I don't know what it is when you look at somebody. Because I don't look at somebody and never say, oh, they'll never figure it out. Because I don't know, like, if they can or not. Because each person is doing something that's so individual that it's like. But I will look at somebody and I'll be, okay, they're figuring it out. That seems to me more obvious than, like, to tell someone. Like, it's in vogue to tell somebody, oh, you should quit. You know, you're not going to make it or something.
Yeah.
But that's not.
I'm not discouraging anyone from quitting, but I do notice that there are, like, certain habits and certain personality types that end up going to self-destruction. And that's in any kind of creative scene where there's some people, it's like,
Sure.
There's like entitlement. There's the, what's the word I'm looking for? You basically want it now. It's the idea of not wanting to put in the reps or feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be doing open mics. I should be doing shows. And it's just like, no, even the greats do their reps.
Yeah, people will figure that out on their own. But, like, I don't know, when I look at somebody and I think, well, is this a comedy a reflection of who they really are, or is this like an act? Now, sometimes they're just doing a character. But, like, if it seems too fake, there's something that it's unsettling. You're like, this isn't really who they are. Because obviously we're not telling the truth when we're doing comedy, but we are putting out something about us that's true, I guess. So if you don't have that, then it's hard in the beginning. But then later on, when you're more honest up there, I think that helps. So when I feel people talking about things that they really care about, I think it gives it a boost. And if they're really expressing their true nature, like, you know, for me, I'm generally a person who's happy. So, like, for me to go up there and start screaming, it wouldn't suit my style in a sense, because that's not who I am during the day.
Right.
And, like, you know, I don't swear. So, like, for me to go up there and start swearing, it would come off as strange. But then other comics, they only swear during their day. So if they cut that out of their language for their comedy, it would be strange, you know.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. If they're more close to who they are in real life, I think that's an advantage. But, you know, what do I know? I mean, I'm trying to learn too. Like, but something about that strikes me when I'm like, oh, they're not really having these thoughts. They just think it's funny, or they just think whatever. That to me isn't as high of a comedy as, like, something they're really, like, I really get steamed up about Chase Bank, you know, charging me $12 a month. So, like, I've written a bit around that because that really does bother me that they're doing it. I feel like it's an injustice. So, like, the jokes aren't even that good, but it's that they can really feel my pain or my passion about it. And so then they're like, yeah, you know, it's very strange, like, because it's sort of trivial. You know, it's that real emotion that's coming through in a sense. You know?
It's that integrity of being who you really are. You're not trying to be somebody that you're not. And if you are putting on an act, eventually it'll be incredibly obvious to the people that you're performing that it's not who you really are.
Well, one of the compliments I would get from people after I did Kill Tony one time because it was on a different day. Because normally I have trivia on Mondays, but they said, "Oh, well, you were just you up there," and I thought, "Well, that's great." I mean, that was a very nice compliment, and I did feel that very comfortable. But so, like, my stage persona and my real life persona are not that different, I guess, is what they're saying in a sense. Mm-hmm. So that was good. Like, where if you're acting a certain way. Like, let's say you go up and do your Kill Tony, you do certain way you do your set, and then you do the interview, and it's completely different. It bothers people. Like, there's something about it that doesn't seem right. Like,
right, and it's obvious to those who've been in the game for a long time that somebody's misaligned or isn't really being true to who they are, or when they are performing, they're putting on a facade of a character where they just isn't really congruent to who they are. Do you have any advice for anybody who's still new to the game, who's kind of still developing their skill, who's really wants to pursue something in entertainment but just doesn't feel they know which direction to go?
I don't know. I'm really new to the game. I mean, I don't know if I should be giving out that kind of advice, but like, I don't know if you're attracted, like you said, you did music and it didn't really work out for you, but you were still attracted to getting on the stage. So something about that for you is not going to go away. And so you could have just like push that down and be like, no, I'm gonna be an accountant or whatever, and I'm just gonna forget that part of my life. That's over. It would make you miserable, So you're being true to yourself in the sense that like this is a need I need to fulfill. So I guess if like people are attracted to stand up for some reason, obviously people want to make money, they want to be famous, but also they have a need to express themselves and they have a need to maybe release some anger or just whatever it is. Then just follow that, I guess. I mean, like I could quit doing trivia, but I just really like it, and it's fun. I get a feeling of importance when I see all the people there. They're here to see me in my show, and like I've developed certain things, like all these fart noises I'm playing, and like I started singing my own karaoke versions of songs that I play, and so like that brings me a certain amount of joy, and the people like it. Even the music's not that good, but they like it because it's stupid, or like they're like, oh, that's a very Alden thing to do, like whatever that means, but like. So, but I don't know if that's something you can cultivate or just being really honest with yourself of who you are. I mean, if you're really a surly person who hates everybody, then that should be what you do for your comedy. I mean, because that's who you are. Like that isn't bad. They're good even, but it's like if I went up there and I was really surly, it wouldn't be a reflection of But now about Chase Bank, I can get like that because I was mad, and I still am, and I want to get revenge, So, but that's like. I don't know. Again, people are drawn to it for all sorts of reasons. But a lot of them probably don't even know why they're doing it, and that's okay, I think too. Like, but then at some point you should kind of set a goal for yourself, whatever it's going to be.
From you say that you are so new into this game that you shouldn't be giving any advice, but from what we've been talking about, I've picked up tons of wisdom. The idea that you should be congruent with who the person you are. In real life is the same person that you should be on stage. You should be following something and doing something with the intention of, or actually have an intention of why you're doing something. Like exactly why are you on stage? Why are you following this path, knowing who you are, what you want, and then doing it in a way that you actually enjoy the products that you're putting out there compared to just kind of doing it just to go through the motions. And that's solid.
Well, like, Jack and Cody are doing that Good Evening show, and so they ask all kinds of people, hey, write some topical jokes or whatever, and some people will do it, but then they'll kind of drop off. I just like writing jokes, and the idea that they might be used for something is great. So, like, I just been sending them jokes, and then they're like, hey, be part of the writers group. Okay, cool. But, like, if I had some kind of motive of, like, oh, I want to do my own show or something, and a way to do it is to like put this on my resume, but I hate it, but I really want it, whatever. Then it would never work because it is a lot of work, But I like it, so it doesn't seem like work to me. Like that was the pleasant part of my day. It was trying to come up with a joke about gas went down 19 cents. That was the headline. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to write some topical jokes there? That's fun. I mean, and I got to, again, I did my work today, like they would say in the artist way, or no, that's the War of Art, I think.
Well, you put in the reps. It was Jimmy Clifford, who actually talked to me on the podcast and said how he was inspired by Jerry Seinfeld, who walked past a group of construction workers who were going to clock back into work. And he was on his way to go perform comedy. So he looked at what he's doing in the same way that these people are going to work. He himself is actually going to work. He has to put in the same amount of effort and tenacity as someone who's clocking in for, the construction job, the accountant job. They still have to put in the same level of effort, because if they don't, then who's going to be there to push them besides themselves?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, it is. You don't see the work on the surface, because when you go to a comedy show, it just seems like everybody's hanging out. But people are expending a lot of effort, privately, or they're going through their life and taking an inventory or doing whatever, trying to figure out who they are, But then if you start to listen to comics like Jerry Seinfeld would be a good example, or Jeff Foxworthy or George Carlin, they'll say, I'm a writer. That's not true of every comic either, but I fall into that camp. I have to do the writing. That's what seems to drive me. And then how am I going to make it into something that's suitable for stand-up is different. But just to get the ideas out on paper, to me, seems like the way out to get it. But that's not necessary to be a good comedian. Some people are more physical and they're going to act the thing, or the idea comes from inspiration, or doing drugs or drinking or whatever it is, or like some strange thing that happened. There isn't just a way to do it. But like, I was already a writer before I started doing comedy, so I of course lean on that. But that doesn't mean there's only one way to do it.
Right. It's what you find the most joy doing, and it's not something that you have to be forced to do. It's just something that kind of comes natural to you, and something that you almost look like, from what you're saying, you look forward to putting your ideas onto paper.
Well, it's fun to exercise your mastery, and I can see my ability growing as a writer. Like, I started that tag writing mic at the Romo Room, and like the first time I'd go up, I'd give somebody 5 minutes of time, and I'm trying to write a joke within their 5 minutes. And the first couple weeks was rough. Sometimes I wouldn't come up with anything. And now, in that period, I can usually write 3 or 4 jokes that are jokes. They're good, and they'll get people laughing. So, like, I can see the growth of the ability, I do that at the Lucky Duck, too. Everybody who goes up, I try to write one joke during their set, a new joke. Part of that is just, volume. I mean, they're not all great, but, like, to be able to come up with it quickly is really an advantage for a host.
I also love the fact that you're doing this in the pursuit of helping other comedians, because there are sometimes those in entertainment who kind of look at it in a very selfish way, where like they don't write or don't give their best jokes to somebody else. They'll end up keeping them for themselves, but you're actively writing and trying to help others kind of build themselves up. And that's something that's very admirable and very genuine as a comedian and just as a performer in general. I think that's an amazing trait that you have.
Well, they're giving me something too, because again, the jokes are not what's important. It's the ability to write the jokes. So like, I can't write like that at home. The way I write at the Lucky Duck is special, because they're prompting me to come up. They're giving me the raw material, which I couldn't get from myself, and then the speed of it, the pressure, I think, increases it. Because also the joke's got to be very short, and I got to come up with it. So, but also there's a secret to it. Like, they're doing their 4 minutes. Let's say they got a laugh in these certain spots. I'm going to write a tag on something that already got a laugh. So the chances are that it's going to be funny are much higher. So they're surveying the crowd for me, essentially. So I'm piggybacking off their thing. But too, like those jokes I write for the hot breath, I just put them out. I don't care if anybody takes them or has them. I just want to show that I did my work today, essentially. And I get people will send me a message, hey, number 5, that's a good one. Maybe I'll look back at that and say, what is it about that one that's so good structurally? Like somebody wrote, I wrote this one. It was about human meat or something. It's like if you, give a man a steak and he'll eat for a day. Tell him it was human meat. Now you're in it together. Like, there's something about that structure that's so strange, and it really. It was Jason Ball who said, "Oh yeah, that one's very funny." And so, like, I was like, "Oh yeah, that is pretty funny." But it's just interesting. But again, it's fun. I don't think of it as it's not a burden, or like I'm not trying to get to some other thing. Like, this is the thing, to be free and be able to do it. Like,
and it sounds like you really do enjoy the art of it and the grind of it. Like, it seems like you have real passion behind the things that you're doing, and it comes out in your work. To wrap up this conversation, I'd love to ask you this question. This is something that I've asked other guests, and I really do enjoy hearing the responses that I get. Do you believe that there is a certain message that more people should hear? Is there some sort of, it could be advice or it could just be any type of phrase that stuck with you that you believe more people should know about or should hear?
Just like comedians, or just people in general, or
Either or. Leave it up to you.
I don't know. It's life is challenging if you're not doing the things you want to do. I don't know. I think it's like you owe it to yourself, kind of. But obviously, there's pressures from society to do certain things. But if you really, we only get, in my belief, we only get this one life, and so you should do what you want. I mean, but it's one thing to say it; it's another thing to do it.
True, to follow something that you're actually passionate about in the small blink of a moment that you have as an existence. There should be more time spent pursuing things that bring joy to oneself than, doing what others believe you should be doing or pursuing the things that, is quote unquote the normal.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe kind of nihilistic or something, but I don't think our lives have any meaning, And I wouldn't say I'm an atheist or anything, but the idea that there is no one who's going to weigh you at the end of our lives, or this is what we have, so you should try to do what you want. But it's hard, because there's people telling you that you can't, and a lot of them are people who aren't, But the ones who are getting it, they understand, and you just have to surround yourself with those kind of people. I mean, because there's a lot of people who aren't happy, and they don't know how to be happy, and they don't realize that to be happy, you should do the things that make you happy. That seems idiotic as a statement, but it is. I really like eating In-N-Out Burger, so I do that once a week. That is going to make me happier than, finding $10 or something. I mean, it's I don't know. It seems obvious. If I achieve in this area of my corporate life, then all of a sudden I'm going to be happy. Well, does being a CEO make you happy? You're well, no. Well, then that doesn't make sense.
Right. I've heard a couple different people talk about that, where you have to learn to be happy before you get the thing, because if you believe that happiness lies within some sort of external measurement, then you're unhappy up until you get it, and then once you get it, you've changed so much as a person, it might not even make you happy at it, but the pursuit of the goal, the pursuit of the passion is what brings people to a place where they can be yeah, maybe I'm not judged by some sort of God or deity, but if you look back at yourself and you're able to judge your own life, did you live it in a way that you can look back and smile at? Would you want people that you love to live that same way?
Oh, yeah, I think. Well, and too, if you're a fan of Tony Robbins, you know that achievement and fulfillment are different. But it's hard because our society values achievement so much. So to do the things that make you fulfilled are sometimes irrational by our standards, but you just have to do them anyways. And you don't owe anyone an explanation.
I love that. It's a really good place to end on this. I'd love to let the people know how they can support you. Can you give us your socials,
sure,
and how they can attend your plethora of events?
Yeah, probably the Instagram page is the easiest. It's just the Mob Schaub, and then there's a link tree on there that goes to all the stuff. Just come out to a live show. That's great. Also, likes are nice. People can like things on the internet. I heard. And that's about it, I guess. I mean, I got a show every night. It seems like. So if you're feeling like you want to be entertained, that would be a good place to hang out. Yeah. Other than that, my trivia. If you want to do trivia, it's at Unknown Trivia. So that's on Mondays and Tuesdays. So. Yeah,
I really hope the people listening to this were moved by your words and can see the passion that you have behind your craft. And I really do hope more people get to come and see the amazing things that you're creating out here in Austin.
Well, I hope so. Plus, I hope to create things that are unusual, so that'll be good. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being a guest today, and I really do appreciate you for stopping by and just dropping all these little knowledge bombs and your take on the world, because I genuinely believe that there should be more people like you doing amazing things and following their dreams, regardless of, whatever other people say. You are the embodiment of somebody who's following their passion, and I admire that so much about you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, everybody should. I mean, but it's hard, but they can do it.
I believe so too. Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. If you love this episode, please consider leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Music or iTunes. It takes 30 seconds for you, but for us, it helps spread positivity to more people during these chaotic times. It helps build a community, and it makes me smile from ear to ear. Speaking of community, we have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Carpe Natem. Just answer the 3 questions to get access to some extra motivation and inspiration for your timeline. If you would like to support this podcast, screenshot this episode and share this to your story. Tag me at Carpe Natem 114. That's going to be my handle across all platforms, including TikTok, if you'd like to give me a follow. If you haven't already, please rate us and subscribe on Spotify or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. And lastly, you can find all episodes, linked to resources, and opportunities for coaching and mentoring from me at carpenatem114.com. I cannot thank you enough for spending part of your day with me. You are all rock stars taking the necessary steps to be your best self, willing to do whatever it takes, and ready to grab life by the butt cheeks. So until next time, this is Nate Hoya-Reynoso signing off.